I'm talking to him, and he invites me upstairs after she goes to sleep, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I go upstairs, and he's obviously in bed, so he has me come lay in bed with him. 15. And I was basically just because you're at that point 55 and I'm 20, and he's already been married twice, that doesn't mean that I don't deserve to be married. So I really wanted to get married, so we just kind of agreed to get married. Things were hurting, and I was sick in the morning, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And so that was traumatic, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I came from a broken home, so I didn't want that for my own child. So this was something that I was just in my head thinking, I have to stay.
Welcome back to another episode of Clocked Out Conversations. I'm your host Fahim, and today we got some more TikTok content. Part 1 of Who the Heck Did I Marry? I'm not here to waste your time. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and let's get into it.
Hey, my name is Kelsey. I was on a TV show 8 years ago, and I'm ready to talk about it. Forgive me if I'm looking down. I have some notes here just so I keep this better organized, because I've already tried filming this a couple of times, and I'm just kind of all over the place with it, because technically it was 5 years of my life. So basically, if you don't know, I was on Dr. Phil 8 years ago. I married my friend's dad, and it gained a lot of attention, especially locally. So basically, I'm going to start off by saying this. I'm not a victim. I think that what happened to me at the time, I was a victim, but I no longer have that mindset, because it's in my past. I've healed from it, and I don't really allow it to take control of me anymore. So I don't view myself as a victim. But the Kelsey that we're talking about today was a victim. So, we met because his daughter was one of my friends in school. The show portrayed it as us being best friends, but I don't recall that ever being the case. We were very close at one point. And I would like to preface this by, again, my home life, no one was really checking on what was happening while it was happening until after it happened, of course. So, with that being said, I'm over there one night, and I'm talking to him, and he invites me upstairs after she goes to sleep, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. So I go upstairs, and he's obviously in bed, so he has me come lay in bed with him. 15. I fell asleep, and the next morning, I just remember her, knowing. I don't know, if she came up there and saw it, or, and so, I feel bad for that, obviously, because, that wasn't okay, even for her, but it also wasn't okay, what happened to me.
She did this at 15? This happened at 15? He invited a 15-year-old up to his room and laid in bed with her? Oh my God, this is disgusting. Let's keep going.
So she gets upset, obviously, and she, gets, a mutual gang of our friends, I guess, to also hate me at the time. That didn't help what was going on in my life, so essentially what that ended up doing was, isolating me, and eventually leading me to make other poor choices in life. So, yeah. So that's at 15. 4 years worth of poor choices go by, and I moved back home because I had moved down to Lake Cumming, and moved back up this way, and I'm 19 now, and I'm grocery shopping with my friend. We're kind of just goofing around, and I was like, oh my God, is that? And he's like, yeah. And so I go, okay, And so we obviously, talk, because there's history, and, it was kind of, obviously very flirty from the get-go, so I kind of, at this point, I hadn't, I had dated, but I hadn't really dated enough to know that, he was just being, gross, and I thought he was actually, like, flattering, you know, me, and that's very sad to say, because, like, thinking about some of the things he said, I'm like, God, I hope no one would ever say that to my daughter, and she felt flattered. So there were signs, basically, and the more because after that, we talked and we exchanged, numbers and talked, so I basically break up with who I'm with to date him and pursue him, and he will use that word, I pursued him, and that's very strange because he started it when I was 15 by grooming me, so, like, but immediately after moving in, I recognized signs of, like, you know, basically, I'm moving stuff in, I'm cleaning stuff out, I'm doing the whole girlfriend thing, right? And I reach up in the closet to get some stuff down, and there's, like, a Victoria's Secret bag, and like, think about, like, a single bachelor, like, older man's room, you're gonna notice the Victoria's Secret bag, you're gonna be like, what's in that? So I look in it, and it's, like, a pair of women's underwear, and I was like, they were my size, like, but would it be wrong of me to assume? So I asked, and surprised, they weren't for me. I know, they were actually for another girl that he had been talking to at the time that he met me. So why I didn't take that as a sign? Right. After moving in, let me tell you, I was already insecure and hard on myself, and I knew that, like, this man had, like, opened doors to things that, like, I didn't know in that way, you know? And so I became very insecure about myself based off of the things that he was, like, showing me he was interested in, you know? And so, like, comments about my weight started popping up, and it would be like, right. So I would just kind of shove it off and be like, wow, that was kind of hurtful, but he eventually, led me down the road of developing so, like, I have problems with and stuff, but basically after that, I started recognizing, like, his ego, and oh my God, his ego was insane, like, the man's ego, okay, he was so inappropriate, and, like, he constantly carried this, like, victim mentality, like, he couldn't understand why women rejected him before me, and, like, the more I was with him, the more I would realize why they rejected him. I was like, well, 'cause you're gross, Grandpa, like, I don't know, like, but, okay, and you're gonna be like, well, Kelsey, if you felt that way, why'd you, I know, I'm just kind of staying with him out of spite at this point, because, like, everyone's telling me not to, of course I'm gonna do the one thing you tell me not to do, you know, like, so, the show kind of portrayed me, upset that they had, like, a relationship, but that wasn't the case at all. I was upset that the relationship had no boundaries, especially, like, when he and I would go out to eat, like, as a couple, because, like, as hard as that dynamic is to imagine, like, that's still the case very much in the scenario where, like, a couple going out to eat and doing couple things, but when we're doing these things, and it seems to be, like, an all-the-time constant thing that we're just constantly revolving our life around her. And, like, so we would be out to eat, and she would, like, call him and be having some kind of episode or a meltdown. And, like, when I say meltdown or an episode, these were honestly just kind of, like, hissy fits. Like, I want to say, like, mental health was a factor, but now that I'm grown up and I, like, see mental health versus, like, who a person is, these were just hissy fits. So, she would be having a hissy fit, and he would have to stop in the middle of dinner and leave to go, like, take care of it. And at one point, one time he left me at the movies, and went all the way, like, an hour and a half out of the way at the end of the day, it was my fault for putting up with it and staying, but these were just, like, examples of, like, how trapped I was. So some time goes by, we, like, have developed some kind of, like, sense of being able to coexist and, like, just be together and live an everyday life. So obviously I'm very young at this point, and I'm like, well, everyone my age is getting married. I want to get married. I deserve to get married. And I was basically like, just because you're at that point 55 and I'm 20, like, and he's already been married twice, that doesn't mean that I don't deserve to be married. So I really wanted to get married, so we just kind of agreed to get married. There was no proposal or anything, and we actually didn't even like have a wedding or get married in a courthouse. We got married by someone who was ordained that was working at Verizon that day. But nonetheless, we got married, and that's something I have to live with every day. But basically, life goes on. We just, again, we're living life, like, just doing every day. And then, things are still happening with her, like, as far as drama goes, and a lot, like, there was a lot of drama, a lot of, like, unnecessary, like, it was just so much, and I don't really want to get too much into that, because I respect the other person that was involved in that. I just don't want to talk about it, basically, and that's okay. Like, I don't have to talk about it, but I'm mentioning it because it does have a lot to do with, like, there was drama, right? So I want to leave. I've officially decided, like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I don't want to be married to him. I want a divorce. So I'm, like, mentally preparing myself for this, and my family at this point is telling me, no, don't do it, like, you're not gonna really give up that easy and stuff like that. And I'm like, but I thought you guys thought so. I am preparing myself to leave, and then a couple of weeks into, like, having this idea, I start noticing, like, my body is different. Like, things were hurting, and I was sick in the morning, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And so that was traumatic, because I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, I came from a broken home, so, like, I didn't want that for my own child. So this was something that I was just in my head thinking, I have to stay, like, I have to stay and stick this out and be the woman that I didn't have as an example, and that's unfortunate, because it really put me in a bind, because just what happens later. So I'm pregnant, and obviously that causes some tension in the house, because I'm pregnant, and at the same time that I'm pregnant, all of a sudden Dr. Phil's crew is in contact with Tara. And we were like, what? Because a year before, I had contacted Dr. Phil, like, filled out one of those form things, but I never heard anything back. And I was like, well, that's okay. But I didn't know that a year after that, like, in the months before me even finding out I was pregnant, her mom had reached out too and filled out the same form. So I guess what happened was the crew must have, like, recognized her name a couple of times and recognized the need and was like, okay, I don't really know. But I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Are you sure it's real? Like, for the longest time I was like, that's not real. Like, you just, so she, like, talks to them and interviews with them, I guess, and they, like, and, like, while interviewing her, I'm recognizing that, like, she's disappearing, and when she is around, she's, like, kind of whispering and, like, talking about me, and I'm like, oh, 'cause that's the thing, is, like, I was never really under the impression that we were, like, doing that. We were filming for that, because I was under the impression we were helping her. I even, like, denied wanting to be a part of it, and, like, wasn't a part of it for a minute until they, like, manipulated me into, like, well, she's not gonna get help unless you do this. And I was like, like, obviously I care about her, so I'm going to do this. So I did it, and then in doing it, I find out, like, maybe the story was going, like, they were kind of, like, narrating their own story. Like, oh, well, this girl married her high school best friend's dad, and now is pregnant, and this is causing this girl to crash out, basically. And I was like, no, this girl's been crashing out since we were teenagers. We weren't best friends when we were in school. We were just kind of friends, I guess. But, like, also, yeah, I understand how that could affect someone now, but I definitely wasn't the reason behind her crashing out and her mental health. Let me just get that out there. Like, I refused to take accountability. I will say that maybe I added to her mental health, but I'm not the reason for her mental health, you know? No. But let's keep in mind, too, that I am pregnant at this point. Like, I'm 3 months pregnant that this is happening. So this is essentially affecting my mental health, because, like, it's adding to her drama. It's adding to, like, we're still arguing and bickering and fighting every day. It's so bad, and I needed away from it, you know? It was, like, starting to become an issue for my pregnancy, and I just needed away. So the crew comes out and films. They come out from California to Georgia to the house that we're renting, and they film there. That's why, like, in the I think it's the first episode, because there's 2 episodes. In the first episode, you can see, like, where we lived at the time, and I was like, so imagine I was 6 months pregnant at the time. Imagine being 6 months pregnant and, like, just a whole film crew have taken over your entire house. I can't throw up in peace. I can't eat my pregnancy snacks in peace. Like, I was irritated. So when you see video of, like, the footage from me being interviewed and stuff, yeah, man, like, I was already up here. And then they were, like, bulldogging me by, like, well, tell us how, like, this interferes with your life as a grown woman and blah, blah, blah. So it was taking me up here, because I'm like, what are you talking about? Get out of my face. Like, they were basically implying that I felt a certain way, and that's what you see in the show, is, like, I was just repeating at that point what they were telling me verbatim, because I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to be a part of it. Now, obviously, the smarter thing to do would have been just to walk away from it, but at the time, I was just very young and impressionable, and I was like, whatever, just get it over with, get it out of my face, basically. Now, a lot of our troubles that he and I had were financial. Like, he just would not work, and, like, when he did work, it was like, so I worked a lot of the time. I worked actually my entire pregnancy. I worked my entire pregnancy and went back to work early after having the baby, because he just wouldn't work. And so that was a big issue for us. So when it came time for us to fly out to LA, it was kind of embarrassing, because at the time I was the only one working, but my money was going towards paying bills, like our rent, our food, our, like, electricity, things like that. So I didn't really get to experience the whole, like, new motherhood thing at that time, because I was so busy doing this. So we went to LA, basically. We didn't have any money to do anything. They just kind of flew us out there, and we were just kind of bored hanging out in LA. So we were there for 2 nights, 3 days, Universal Studios, and it was actually really nice, but this is the catch, okay, is that we were only eating hotel food and Subway. That was, like, literally all that they gave us. So at one point, like, her drama is continuing even while we're there. So with her drama continuing, at one point I get sick of it, and I left, like, close to the middle of the night, and I go to Panda Express down the road, and I'm eating Panda Express, a pregnant lady, in the middle of the night on the sidewalk, just eating. And I realize now that probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but, like, I just remember standing there crying and eating my lo mein, just thinking about how terrible my life was at that point. It was so bad. I also wanted to mention the lack of care they had for me as a pregnant woman, because when we got there, we had just flown, like, I think it was a 5-hour flight. We had just flown 5 hours or something, and I'm, like, at that point, like, 8 months pregnant, and I had just flown 5 hours, and the first thing that they want to do, instead of feeding me or giving me water or letting me rest or anything, is that they're making me do this, like, freaking tour on a golf cart of Paramount Studios. And I was like, okay, but, like, I'm hungry, I'm starving, I am thirsty, water, anything, babe, anything. So we're actually there the same day as other guests. I won't say who, but if you look up season 17, you'll know exactly who. And it was so funny, because I saw her, and I remember, like, looking at her and looking at her mom and being like, oh. Because, like, I didn't know what the dynamic was. Like, why were they there? Why? Because we didn't know. And, afterwards, after filming, and I saw how, like, what she turned into, I was like, oh my god, I've actually, like, been this close to her face. Like, we were in the same hallway, standing there waiting for, because I think we shared a dressing room or something, or, I don't know. But they also didn't have us sign those NDAs until we were in the dressing room on filming day. So I didn't even have time to read it or anything. They were just like, and they knew what they were doing. They were like, here, change real quick. So I changed, and then they just, like, throw some paper and pen in front of me, and they're like, sign this. And I'm like, what is this? This is the NDA we discussed already. Okay, but, like, do I get time to read it? No, we've got film. Let's go. I was like, okay, what? I don't know what I'm signing. This is crazy. So I signed the NDA. I get out to the hallway. I'm face to face with her. I was like, okay. They're, like, hyping us up like a boxing ring. Like, that's, whenever you see her episode, you can understand now, like, in our episode, it was the same thing. Whoever the producers or whatever were at the time, they were like, yeah, you're angry at her because she takes time away from you and your husband. And I was like, actually, that's not it at all. Like, what are you talking about? That's not my problem at all. My problem is she can't grow up. Like, but whatever. Like, they were just trying to get me to talk about it, and I wouldn't. Like, what you see me talk about on set is, like, literally, that's how I was the entire time. So, but the funnier part was they couldn't, like, edit as much as they wanted because I didn't give them enough to edit. So, okay, so we finished up filming. After we finished filming, they take us back to the dressing room, and we get changed out to, like, back into what we were when we arrived. Our bags are already packed and, like, in the taxi that they're taking us to, and we were like, what the heck? So they immediately throw us in the taxi and then put us on a plane to leave. And we were like, oh, okay, we're done. Thanks, that was fun. Good times, thanks. Like, it was so weird. Well, so we get to the airport, and if you watch the episode, she gets sent to some kind of, let's just call it like a horse rehab, because that's what Dr. Phil is known for, right? So she gets sent to some kind of horse rehab, but she's pissed because that's not where she wanted to go. She wanted to go to, like, the beach or Maui or some shit, and I was like, okay, like, understandable, but that's not where he's willing to send you. Well, she's upset about it. She has one of her breakdowns. So again, I'm telling you, it's a hissy fit because she's upset about she's not getting what she wants. So she's, like, threatening to leave, or to stay in LA and just, like, live homeless on the street and die. And she's, like, sobbing and crying, and we're standing in front of the airport. I'm trying to make it to the gate. Okay, I'm, like, freaking 8 months pregnant, trying to make it to the gate so I can get back home, because that's our only ticket that they paid for, because keep in mind, we have no money, right? So I'm, like, freaking out, and he's just kind of like, oh, this is stupid, like, just be there for her. You don't have to be like this. We're all family. We've got each other, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. That was the most humiliating, embarrassing thing that I've ever done. Like, oh my god. And to know that it would be airing on national television later, I was, like, already just not having it. So we get on the plane, and I'm obviously leaving him. Like, I'm texting him, like, a long message about how, like, that was so embarrassing. I'm over this. Like, keep your drama. I'm done, type thing. So, he gets that text when we get off, and he's immediately calling one of the producers over there from the show and telling him about it. And the producer's like, no, Kelsey, just stay. Like, let her go to rehab, and you stay and raise your family and your baby and let everything smooth itself out. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I stayed, and unfortunately in staying, things just progressed, like, worse. Like, we were arguing all the time. We were fighting, like, getting physical with each other. He wasn't working. I would be coming home, and the baby would still be in, like, a dirty diaper. And again, I went back to work 2 weeks before I should have even went back to work. So just because he wouldn't work. So I was coming home to the baby not being clean, the house just being like a wreck. It was just, like, all the time something. And then to make it better, she gets out of rehab, and sure, she tries a few things here and there before ultimately coming and staying with us again. But what really, like, was the last straw was when she moved back in, she took over my son's nursery. And at the time, we only lived in a 2-bedroom, and I was just very upset because I was like, you're an adult. At what point am I going to be able to stop, attempting to raise you and be able to raise an actual baby, And that was more so the problem. It wasn't like what they portrayed on the show. The problem was we are equally adults, like, here. And it's not so much that, you've got something going with your dad, like your relationship with your dad. It's that, like, the relationship knows no boundaries. The relationship was questionable, if you know what I mean. Like, so naturally I leave, right? So I leave. I packed up mine and my baby's things, and I moved 5 hours away to an entirely different state, and just started over. Like, I literally started over from nothing. I had absolutely nothing. I purchased a van, and I had a roommate, and we just took on life with a whole new meaning. And I started going to therapy, and obviously needed it. I did a lot of healing and a lot of, like, finding myself, because if you think about it, like, he took away a lot of my childhood. I met him when I was 15. He took away a lot of my adolescence, and I just refused to let him take any more from me. So we continued to, like, let him see the baby and be in contact and have visitation and stuff. However, when he would come down here to stay with him, I was still purchasing diapers and stuff so that I knew my baby had diapers and food, because that was just one thing, is that I didn't want my baby to be neglected in the way that, like, I had already seen him neglected before, So, so eventually I ended up moving back down here, though, back home. And when I moved back home, I did stay with him in a little bit, because he actually rented from my dad. And when he rented from my dad, I moved out, and he ended up getting evicted because he couldn't pay for it. So when he got evicted, he moved to Florida. He just up and moved and didn't say bye to our son. Like, our son still to this day he doesn't want anything to do with him. And it's not because of anything that I've had to say or do, because actually I haven't said or done anything. My son remembers, like, memories with him, and my son remembers the neglect too, oddly enough, because, like, he didn't have a car. He lived in front of a gas station, so he would just walk down to the gas station to feed my son dinner. Like, and these were things that I didn't know at the time. But eventually when I found out, like, obviously I cut visitation off, because, that's neglect. And that he started getting pissy about that, and then at the same time is when he was getting evicted. So it all kind of just went away at the same time. So 2 years ago, he moved away. We hadn't heard from him. He's been cut off since then. And then, unfortunately, lately, I hear he's moved back. But he hasn't tried to contact us, and I won't be in contact with him. All right, so thanks for sitting and listening to my story time, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
So, what do you guys think about this story time? I think this is a classic case of being a predatory behavior, and manipulative behavior. Frankly, I mean, Buddy was 50 years old dealing with a 15-year-old. Like, that's definitely disgusting. That's not okay. That's definitely against the law, no matter what state you're in at 15. And so I say that to say, yeah, that shouldn't have been happening, and he actually needs to go to prison. That's trifling. And on top of that, now that you've done what you did, you still a deadbeat. Imagine being a deadbeat at 50 years old. Shouldn't be a deadbeat, period. No matter what age you're. Age really don't matter in this conversation. As far as you being a deadbeat, that doesn't matter. Well, you shouldn't be a deadbeat at any age. But at 50 years old, when you're supposed to have everything together, life together and things like that, Buddy's still not taking care of his kids. Come on now, bro. What is this? What is this? That's just trifling. And then, it's just too much. She had to work. She had to go back to work even early because you refused to work. Imagine being a 50-year-old man talking about something you refuse to work. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That's just outright embarrassing. And frankly, being the type of guy that he was, I'm not surprised that he ended up where he ended up and needed to move and is constantly having to move around and is outright broke. But let me know down in the comments below. Do you guys agree with me that it's good that she got away from an old guy and decided to start a whole new life? Or do you guys disagree and think that for the sake of keeping the family together, she should have stayed with him and kept her son in contact with him? Thank you for tuning into this Clocked Out Conversation. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!